Here's a demonstration of how to use radio buttons in Tkinter. So I'm using Replit here, and I've created a new Tkinter Replit. And I want to just create a simple project that has several radio buttons and then a action that will display which radio button has been pressed. So I want to import Tkinter as TK. And then I'll put in the radio buttons first, and I'll come back and I'll put in the command. So first I need a window, so root equals tk.tk. And I want a variable that I can assign the values of which button is pressed and the radio buttons to. So I'll just call it var, and it'll be a tk int var variable. And then I want to make my radio buttons. So I'll just call them radio 1, and then radio 2, 3, and 4. And make radio 1, I'm going to do tk.radio button. And I'm going to put it on the root window. I'm going to give it some text. I'll just say option 1. I will assign the variable to be var, which is what I just created above. I'll give the value to be 1 because it needs a separate value for each one. And then I'll do a grid command. So I'll do radio1.grid, and I'll put it in row 0 and column 0. I want to do that 3 more times, so I'm just going to copy it, and I'll change it to 2. And then change it to column or row 1, because start counting to 0. And then I'll do it 3. Column or row 2, and then I'll do it 4. And just to test that, we'll run a root.main loop and run it. So now I've got my radio buttons, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're radio buttons because if I click on one, it'll uncheck the other ones. Okay. Now I want to have it do something when I click on it. So I'm going to create a label down here that's just, I'll just call it text, and it'll just be a label. Put it on the root window. And I'll just start with text that says, make a selection. And I'll put that at underneath everything else. So that'll just add something to the bottom there that says make a selection. But then what I'd like it to do is every time I choose a different button, it will tell me which one I have chosen. And that could then be changed to do any kind of action. It could set a setting, it could get something to start moving, or start an animation or something like that. But for right now, I'll just have the text change to whatever the selection is going to be. So I'll define that up here at top. I'll define a function called choice. And I'll have a variable here that's going to get, or that's going to set up the text that I want to put in there. So you have selected option, and then I'll add to that the value that's being stored in the variable var. So to do that, it's an int var, so I'm going to make it a string first, and then I'll say var.get, because that'll be the command to get the value from the variable. So I do your selected option and then var.get is going to get whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and this plus sign concatenates it together, so it'll make it into one piece of text. And then, in order to do something with that, I will apply that text to the text label that I've created. So text.config allows me to configure the text label value that I've got, and I want to say the text equals selection, which is right here. So this selection that I just created, I'm going to put that as the text of text. Now the last thing I need to do is I need to connect this command choice to my radio buttons, so that when I press the radio button it will do the command. And I do that just like I do with a regular button. I just add a command equals, and choice is what I want it to be the command. So I'll add that to each one, and that means that when I press the button, it will then execute this function choice. So I will start this again. Now I got make a selection, which is my label down here, and when I click one, it will then run that command, and since it's stored, since the first radio button stores the value of 1 into variable var, and then this command takes that variable and adds it to you have a selected option and then puts it in the text, it updates it. And that'll work for each one here. And that's an example of how you can use a radio button.